Hello, today we're going over the basic mod stuff. So we're here in our tutorial project with the example mod.java open, but the first thing that we need to talk about is this file. And you'll notice that it's very messy looking, but basically anything that has a hash in front of it is a comment, and this is Forge's way of telling us like what each of these things do. So we need to tell it that we are loading a Java Forge mod loader mod. That's how we're loading it. And then we have to tell it a Forge version range with the loader version here. It's mandatory. And then a URL to refer problems. It's an issue tracker. It's optional. You don't have to have it, so you can just straight up remove it if you don't have one. If you do not remove it, it needs to have a proper address. It doesn't have to look at anything. If it doesn't have a proper address, then it won't. It'll cause a URL malformation exception when you load. And then this, I'm not exactly quite sure what this is. How many allowed here is determined by the individual mod loader. It just has to say mods in it, as far as I'm aware. Then you need to specify the mod ID that goes for this mod. Since it's built for the example mod, it's called example mod. We can change this to tutorial, or I'm going to change it to tutorial mod. Change it to whatever mod you're doing. You could do it as something called tutorial or learning modding or something. Then we have this. I'm going to hard code it as 1.0 because that's basically, you can tell it to look into another file. So I'm just going to tell it to go 1.0 as a hard code thing. Display name, this is when you go into the mods tab on the main menu. That's what people are going to see when they look at it. So I'm going to say tutorial mod because that's what this is. And then this is the update. This uses Forge's update checker. It'll query this URL to check to see if there's an update for your mod. I don't have one, so I'm just going to delete it because it's optional. This, if you have like a homepage for your mod where all the downloads are, like you could put CurseForge there and have it go to your mod, or if you have your own website you can do that. It's optional, so I'm not going to have it because I don't have one for a tutorial mod. And then we have the logo. So this is the image that shows up in the mods tab on the main menu. I haven't made one, so I'm going to delete that, and I'm also going to close Firefox here because I have the modder support page open. This is credits, it's optional, but I'm gonna say thanks to the Forge team for creating Forge/FML and myself. And once again, it is optional. And then this says the authors. So I am the only author. And I do this because this is like what I'm going by now, and this is what I'm named on the Forge forums and several other places. And then this is the full-on description. And I would like to delete this all. It's just some lorem ipsum stuff. But yeah, this is a multi-line thing denoted by 3 single quotes. This mod is made for a tutorial on YouTube. Created by this plays as I think my YouTube name. I'm not quite sure. Then down here we have dependencies. It's entirely optional, but basically you have to have the mod ID, and Forge's mod ID is Forge, because technically Forge is a mod. And we're going to leave this here because we can, and there's really no reason to delete it. So to load it, you need Forge, mandatory, it is funny. It is required to run the mod. And then the version range of the mod, which we kind of already do specify up here, loader version. And then we have the ordering type, so you could do none, before, or after. So when does this dependency need to be loaded in order for your mod to work? So technically Forge needs to be loaded before this mod, but you don't really get a choice because Forge is what loads the mod here. And then which side is the dependency required on? So this would be like, is it required on the client, the server, or both? And then this is how you would specify another dependency. And you put this here to specify what mod, I guess, because this is the mod ID. And we need to change this to tutorial mod to have this work. And then it says Minecraft, because that's Minecraft's mod ID. Mod ID, I should say. It is mandatory, and it has a version range of only 1.14.4. The ordering would technically be before, but once again, it's already loaded up by the time our mod is recognized, and it's required on both sides. That's the mods.toml file. It's generally useful. So we are going to create a new file because we don't want to use this example mod file or package. So we're gonna new class tutorial mod, and we're gonna not do that. We're gonna do since I don't actually own like a website, I use dev.quattrooctus. And then typically the mod ID, so I would do tutorial here for a short. And we'll press finish, and now we've got that file. So the first thing that you need to do when you're making your first file here is you need to add the @mod annotation up to the top, and then give it your mod ID. So most people create like a private static final string here and call it mod ID, and then put their mod ID in here. And then just go, okay, import. That's the import for mod. Tutorial mod.mod ID. Oh, because it's private, it's got to be public. Most people do that. I don't really see the point in doing this anymore in 1.14 because when you use it later on, you actually have to string concatenate, and I think that's a lot more typing. So I think it's just a lot easier to type out your mod ID every time. So the next thing is we need our constructor, because this is how we register things. It's not automatic with the @mod annotation. So if we go back in, if we go back into our example mod, we can actually just copy this line so that it gives us a way to print to the console. That's what a logger is. But we'll see it has a constructor, and then it talks about registering these methods here. So the setup is an FML common setup event. So we register it to the FML Java mod loading context, and when this event needs to be fired, it'll fire this, it'll run this right here. And then the same thing for this, and this, and this. Right, so there are 3 that I'm going to set up here. Private void, common setup. You don't actually have to add the final here, but I think it just looks nice, so I do it. And this is going to be that one, and then the two more are exactly similar to this, so we'll just paste them. And then instead of the common setup event, we'll do client and server. And then we'll change this to server setup and client setup. and import those. Oof. Client import. Is it not server setup event? Dedicated server setup event. That's what that is. So what this is this fires when you run the client on your computer so that you can play the game. And this is called when the server application is ran to host a server. It's not ran when you opened a LAN or anything like that. It's only when the server jar is ran. So then up here we need to do FML mod loading, or FML. Alright, let's just look at the example mod to get this because I can't. FML Java mod loading context. And sorry about my phone there, if you could hear it. .get mod event bus add listener this : common setup, and then we just copy this and paste it for the client and the server. Boom. Now these methods will run when we need them to. And generally you're not going to be doing too much in these. You'll either you can do stuff in here, or you'll do it in something we are going to cover in the next episode. Now, there is another thing that I would like to talk about, and it's called proxies. So, public static final iProxy, which is a interface we are going to create, and we'll just call it proxy. And we need to set it equal to dist executor dot run for dist, and then what we do here is we do a lambda, and we do so this is for the client, so we'll do client proxy : new, I think is what it is, and then server proxy : new. And then we need to create these files. So we're going to hover over this, create the interface iProxy.proxy. And we're not going to add anything to it, but then also in here we need to create two classes. So we need the server proxy class, and it needs two iProxy. Okay, finish. Whoops, not you, go away. And we'll need the client proxy class. And here we'll just import. And this is basically a way to run code inside of your mod that would run differently on the different sides. Because if you tried to run client only code that doesn't exist on the server, it would crash and be like, I don't know what you're talking about. And we should make this public so that we can log stuff externally. And vice versa. So if you had server code that didn't exist on the client and you tried to run it on the client, it would be, what are you talking about? And then crash. And you would have problems. Now, this right here only runs on the client. It's only ever fired on the client. But if you reference client-only classes or client-only methods, actually, I'm not sure. It might crash on startup on the server. I haven't experienced any problems with that, however. But just to be safe, you should use the proxy if you don't know, so you don't run into problems later from users. So now that we have all of that set up, we can delete the example mod file entirely. Gone. And then edit this pack.mc meta file. Oh, it opened up Visual Studio Code. Oops. So we can call this tutorial mod resources. Oops. It would be in pack format 4. A pack format of 4 requires, it just explains it a little bit, and now we can close Visual Studio Code. Not sure why it opened for that. And if we run the client and wait just a little while for it to load. Alright, we're back. We have it open. If we click mods, we'll see our tutorial mod is in there now, and we've got it. And you also see that Forge and Minecrafter there. Not much else to talk about this episode. I covered the basic mod class getting up and started. Hopefully you could have figured that out by looking at the example mod, or if you needed help on a specific thing, you could have gone to the Forge forums. But this is here now, and this is the end of the episode. We're moving on to creating an item in the next episode. Bye.